Morning, folks. Welcome to today's daily devotional. We're going to think of words that Moses spoke to God's people in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 29. He says this to the people of God: "But if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find him if you look for him with all your heart and with all your soul." The context of these words is that Moses is speaking to God's people, and God is speaking through Moses. He tells them that if they depart from him, if they fall into sin, and if they go their own way, that God will ultimately chastise them. He will punish them for their sins. And the way by which he will chastise them is by casting them out of the land that he's going to give them. He will cause other nations to come and invade their land and to carry them away captive to a foreign land. And so he envisages them living in this foreign land. And then he says this: "But if from there, that is, if in the midst of the circumstances that you find yourself in under the chastening hand of God, if in that situation you seek the Lord your God, you will find him." But then here's a caveat: if you look for him with all your heart and with all your soul. In other words, God was saying, if having been chastened by me, and in the midst of your chastening you come to your spiritual senses and you really and truly want to be restored with regards to your relationship with me, and you really want to be in a right relationship again with me, then you will find me when you seek for me in that attitude. You will find him if you look for him with all your heart and with all your soul. In the book of Hebrews, we learn that God, as a loving father, chastens his children whenever they go astray, whenever they sin. And all of us as Christians at times go through experiences and periods in our lives when we wander from God. And often God seeks to draw us back to him through his word. We listen to a sermon speaks to us, we know we ought to respond to it, but perhaps for different reasons we don't bother. And then God, having sought to speak to us through his word, chastens us in his providence. And our circumstances in life change, and we find ourselves facing difficulties and hardships and painful experiences of one kind or another. That's God's chastening. And in the midst of that chastening, we come to our senses and we realise these things are happening as a result of me not being the Christian I ought to be, not being close to God, not being disciplined in my Christian life. These things are happening because I am wandering from God. That's perhaps why I'm ill. That's perhaps why my children, my son, my daughter is sick. That's perhaps why my business is not going the way it should be going. That's perhaps why death has come into our family. In the midst of chastening, God speaks to us if we've been wandering. But God says, if from there, if when you're in such circumstances, in the midst of pain, in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of trials, if it is because you haven't been living the way you should as a Christian and you've been very lax and ill-disciplined, and you want to get back into a right relationship with me, if that's what you truly want, then seek me. And God says, and if you do seek me in that genuine attitude of heart, you will find me. Your relationship with me will be restored. But it's something that you must want to do, really want to do. You will find him if you look for him and search for him with all your heart and with all your soul. Perhaps that's what you need to do today. Perhaps your relationship with God is not what it once was. It's not what it ought to be. If that's the case, make sure you do what you need to do in order to have that relationship restored. Brethren, have a good day. God bless.